So we have here this idea that women can serve in the army. There are many Orthodox families that send their daughters to the army. There's even been ostensibly proper rabbis who've endorsed a halacha position that women can serve in the IDF. And you've probably seen this. Women, they have the mitpachat on their head and they're wearing a skirt and they're in uniform and they're trained in in warfare, weapons and things like that. By the way, we still don't send women into combat, thank God. Right? There's no real. I don't see videos. Okay, well, really not. Thank God, how many casualties have been women? If women were fighting like the men, it would be terrible. It's terrible every time a soldier falls, but you would have seen a lot more women hurt. Okay, especially because if they are fighting, they're more likely to be hurt and killed, right? Because great assets without fighting. Intelligence is not it. Intelligence, they don't have to wear a uniform and they don't have to pick up a gun. So we're going to see that the idea that women going off to war like others is something. What's the basis for this idea, by the way? What does it say? I'll read you what the Gemara says. I put this on the screen for everybody. It's a line in the Mishnah and Sota, in the 5th parak. Okay? It's familiar? It's also brought in the Rambam. I'll read you this line, and I'll explain point by point why this is so gravely mistaken. This idea that that women can join the army. I think I was saying it's everybody. Yes, it says everybody goes what they can do, and everybody goes. Okay, you're jumping the gun, but first it says the problem is in context. It's talking about the Kohen sending people back from the front lines, and he says there's all these exceptions, and there's 2 levels of exceptions: those who are required to go, and those who are sent back entirely, and those who are sent back but they still have to help. Okay, so he said the Mishnah says B'med Dvar Marim B'Milchemet HaReshut. Optional war. By the way, that's a complex halachic issue. But it says Milchemes Mitzvah, which, by the way, is very clear. The first wars to conquer Canaan, the wars of defense, those are Milchemes Mitzvah, like we said last week. We're in a situation that requires Milchemes Mitzvah. Even if the government is heretical and not conducting it properly, the situation still calls for Milchemes Mitzvah. And any Jew who engages in it is engaged in Milchemes Mitzvah. Hakol Yotzin, Afilu Chatan Mechadro, okay, everybody goes out, including the groom from whatever they pick a bridal room and the kala from the chuppah. It's an expression. Wait a minute, they should have noticed that this should be taken literally. First of all, because this is a poetic expression. Just say all men and women. Normally, when you have a halachic case, the Mishnah says hakol chayavim, men and women, avodim ketanim, except for hakol chayavim chutz michereshot v'katan. Okay, includes me, almana, gerusha, and halala, right? Normally the Mishnah, when it wants to tell you straight halacha, will tell you actual halachic terms and give categories. But in this case, it's using a poetic term, and that poetic term is actually loaded. Where do we have this? Chaton mechupato and chadro and what do you call it? And a kala from her chupata. Let's see it soon. I'm opening up the page. I wanted to read everybody. It's in Joel. He talks about an emergency situation. Everybody's going to have to fight. Okay. Okay, we'll hold it here. These pages are thin, so it's like hard to go through them. Okay. Either way, this is the basis for the ostensible heter. Why could draft women? Women can enlist, and they put on the uniform. They go through basic training. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. So the first most basic reason is, like you find at the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. What does it say about going off to war? The tribes were counted, right? All the men were counted from the age of 20 to 60. Why? I'll read you what it says. Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded with Aaron, Se'u with Rosh Kladaf B'nai Israel, L'mishpachotam, L'veit Avutam. Count the entire assembly of the children of Israel by their families, by their fathers' houses. By the way, those are a very specific group. Each tribe is divided into families, like we saw in Bamidbar. And by the way, as we also saw, that what we call last names or family names are already in the Bible. Just because Ashkenazic Jews forgot about them for a while and then re-got them doesn't mean that the Gentiles imposed it on us and they invented them. The fact that I'm called Grossman isn't something new. Every single tribe was composed of a number of families, and they had a family name. And that's what a person was known by. Even among Gentiles, this was the case, by the way. So so-called surnames, those are ancient. They date from Sinai and before Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, his name would have been Moshe ben Amram. What? That eventually, by the time they were counting the Jews in the desert, there was an Amrami family. Amram had enough descendants that there was Mishpachat Amrami. It's mentioned in Sefer Bamidbar, just like the Mishpachat HaKorchi. Korach may have died, vanished into the earth, but he had a lot of sons, and they had families. There was a Levitic family called Mishpachat HaKorchi, the family of the Korahites. It was a subgroup within Mishpachat what? HaKehati. Okay. And Beit Av is a smaller subdivision. And it's very important because Kohanim and Leviim were still divided among Batei Av well after the destruction of the Second Temple. They still remember these things. So, Misparshemoth, Kol Zachar Legugulotam. Every male by their heads. See? So who are the Yotzei Tzava? Mi ben Esrim Shana V'mala, Kol Yotzei Tzava b'Yisrael. All go out to war in Israel. And at the end of this, when it says each tribe, its tribal number is Tolotam Lemishpachadam Levetabatam. It's Parshimot Legugulotam, Kol Zachar Mi ben Esrim Shana V'mala, Kol Yotzei Tzava. This is the basis for the traditional assumption, which had never been challenged by the way until the 20th century, that the only people who go off to war and are counted are the males. There's no such thing in Judaism as women going off to war. Oh, we can have exceptions. Deborah the prophetess was told by God, given a dispensation, you can follow the men. She didn't actually fight, but she, Barak said, if come with us. One woman, the Horat Shah. Yael, Rashi assumes that Yael was a Jewess. What she did killed Sisera, so he mentions, and she didn't even use a weapon because that would be a manly thing to do. She shouldn't wield a sword, so she used a hammer and a peg. But there's also a rival pshat that Yael Eshet Chever HaKeni, the Kenites were a non-Jewish group. It says B'nei Chovav Chotein Moshe. Who is Chovav? Isn't that Yeruel or Yeter or Yitro or some other name? How come all those people have different names? Are they all one person, or Yisro's father or brother? Either way, it's not totally clear that Yisro, if he even converted, which is not explicit, it's alluded to. Why would the rest of his family convert? He was a grown man. Does all his sons have to convert? They could be Philo-Semites, and they could even tag along as Geri Toshav without having to convert to Judaism. That's what seems like we mentioned before. The Keni, who were mentioned a few times in the Torah, and the Navi, they were a subgroup among the Midianites who were aligned with us and allied with us. And we've had them among us the entire time. And maybe some of them eventually converted to Judaism, but some did not. So Yael was the non-Jewish wife of a non-Jewish man who, if you look in the book of Samuel and the book of Bamidbar, was part of a group that wasn't Jewish, but also wasn't hostile. That's all. Okay. Let's get back to the point over here. So women shouldn't be going off to war. That's what it says here. You look over here in the Mishnah, that I put this in blue, red, and green. Those who get sent home. Who gets sent home? It says a certain group of people who just still have to chip in. Right? They have to provide water and food and fix the roads. What you said. So technically speaking, I could imagine that men are doing this. It doesn't say the women have to do these things, but women could provide food. As a matter of fact, a lot of times, who's doing the cooking? Who's cleaning the clothes for everybody? Women could do that away from the front lines. Who's fixing the roads? And sometimes the women have to pick up. They have to do more of the farming if the men are off at war. I could totally understand that women could do this. But these are men who were given a pass, a tour. And that says the Elu Shein on those who don't go back. Hold on one second. There are those who are fall into this category. And then he says the green ones that I put over here, those who don't even have to provide. They don't have to give food or water or help fix anything. So they're completely exempt. And the Rambam mentions them. And apparently, even those people, when you have a milchemes mitzvah, so they're obligated to join. Okay? So we'll put over here what the Rambam says. By the way, Anashim Elu, these men are sent back. What's he talking about? Milchemes Rishus. Milchemes mitzvah, kol yotzin afil chatan mechadro lechala mechupata. When you have a milchemes mitzvah, Even the chassan goes out, even the kala. And by the way, she leaves her chuppah. If you take that literally, it means she's wearing a wedding dress. It's like, nope, everybody, all the wedding guests, everybody, give them a rifle, and we're marching off to war. In our wedding garb. So there's a wonderful note I found just today that you could read the Rambam, you could read the sources, you could read the Nosei Kelim, but here we have Makbili, God bless him, who sent us a few copies of his Svarim that we use every week. He sent it to Beis Medrash free, basically. He had some free Svarim, so it was a tremendous zechus, as we say over here. He mentions over here, Bitui halakuach b'sefer Yoel. This expression that the chassan leaves his cheder and the kala leaves also is taken right over here. Okay, he's talking about the emergency. Am Yisrael is in trouble. The 10 tribes specifically, they're going to be attacked by the Assyrians, and they better repent, or they're going to be taken away into Gullus, right? So he tells them, Tiku shofar b'tzion, kadosh tzom kiru atzara. Sound this a shofar, the ram's horn in Zion. Kadosh tzom. What is a Kadosh tzom? Sanctify a fast day? Yes. Kadosh tzom, we declare an actual fast day. It's the Kadesh, sanctify, because if you do it properly, you're not supposed to do malacha. A day that you don't do malacha is considered a holy day. All the days that are, mikudash, like Shabbos and Yontif, not Rosh Chodesh, by the way, to a certain extent. So those days you don't do malacha. So that's considered holy. Kiru atzara, call and a stoppage, like an atzeret. Day you don't do anything because you have to gather for prayer. Isfuam, gather the people. Kadeshu kahal, sanctify the assembly. Kivsuza kinim, gather the elders. Isfu olalim. Also, what are olalim? Those are little children. Uyonakesha dayim, even those who are still nursing. Obviously, gather everybody together. Why? What's going on? Let the chassan leave his cheder, his room, and the kala to leave her chuppah, her wedding canopy. So either before here we said gather the old people and the children, even the ones who are still nursing. Are they going to say all the old people at the nursing home and all the children who are in the ma'on, right? They're going to go fight. Obviously, it's not talking about fighting. It means everybody has to realize we have an emergency on our hands, and the wedding is canceled. So they say, this is taken from the Radak. Afilu, the groom who is supposed to be celebrating his wedding canceled. He leaves the wedding hall. She also, the wedding's off. You can't have a wedding when everybody has to be fasting or going off to war. That's all. That's all it meant. That everybody has to get involved. So the Rambam uses this expression like the Gemara used the expression. It didn't mean if you have a Milchemes Rishus that the people who had gotten engaged and built houses and planted vineyards are exempt. And now that there's a Milchemes Mitzvah, you know what, we're even going to draft women. Am Yisrael never did such a thing, and it never was the case. It means all the men don't have the exceptions that they may have had if it was a Milchemes Rishus. Yeah. And so the Radbaz and Rav Kapach point out, Chassan Yetzei L'Ilchein, the Chassan goes off to war, the groom goes off to war, and the bride goes out to somehow help them, provide, food, do something, like what the Queen of England did during World War II. She's fixing automobiles, right? Their vehicles. There's pictures of it. They even she was involved in that even. Okay. Keshem Shehi P'tura B'Milchemes Amalek, She Milchemes Mitzvah. By the way, he points out women are exempt from Milchemes Amalek, which is Milchemes Mitzvah. And by the way, they should have put this together. I read you from the book of Bamidbar. The book of Bamidbar is talking about the preparation, counting all the people for what? The quintessential Milchemes Mitzvah. The first mitzvah, conquer the land of Israel. And in that case, what does it say? They only count the men who are going off to war. By the way, Kohanim and Levim apparently weren't even involved in this war. It's been pointed out, Kohanim and Levim do participate in other wars, but wars to gain territory, they didn't. They weren't counted. It says Levim and Sefer Midbar were not part of the count of the people who were going to be fighting for the Eretz Yisrael and going to be sharing in the territory of Eretz Yisrael. But the other wars, Kohanim and Levim have fought in. And there's halachas. A Kohen, can you take a Yefas Tolar? But I thought Kohanim don't fight the wars. No. Wars of defense and wars of Rishus, there is idea that Shevet Levi participates, just like the war against Midian. That wasn't to conquer land. So that was that was a Horash Shah type of war. So like Rashi points out, they did take 1,000 Levitic fighters, but the rest of the time Levium didn't fight. Okay, it depends. And Kohanim are counted Levium as Levium in this case. What's the point here? So the women, it's explicit that women do not fight Milchemes Amalek, which is Milchemes Mitzvah, and it's also explicit that the women don't fight the Milchemes Mitzvah of conquering Eretz Yisrael. So when it says that everybody fights Milchemes Mitzvah, including the bride, it doesn't mean she's actually fighting. It means everybody has to participate, as you were saying before. And this is most important. There's also a prohibition mentioned by no less than Onkelos, very early Torah Shabbat Pasors, describing the law against cross-dressing. Okay, and cross-dressing even applies to not necessarily the pants and suit, not just clothing, but just the tools or paraphernalia. Just like an ornament, just the flower I would put in my hair, that'd be something prohibited because that's what women do. And if they wore a big manly watch, that'd be forbidden, even though it's not their main clothing. So let's see what it says here. There's a prohibition mentioned in the Gemara. It's mentioned in the Torah explicitly that women shouldn't wear what men wear, and vice versa. Men shouldn't do that either. And by the way, the Rambam connects it because of the word toeva, like the Gemara says. There's a word toeva there. What's so toeva? Because it's basically, it was used as a license. And by the way, today also for perverts to do whatever they want. It's another way to throw off the inhibitions. Okay. So it says in Nazir Nun Testament Aleph, the Tanya, here's what the Brisa says. It quotes the pasuk, Lo yekli gever al isha. Okay. The implements of a man should not be upon a woman. I translate kli as implement. Why? Because it's not just vessels. Anything that's fashioned by man and has a use is called a kli in halachic terms. That applies to shirts and pants, applies to hammers, it applies to buckets and tables and furniture. Basically, anything that can be used for anything is a kli. It's made out of materials and it's been fashioned by the hand of man, as opposed to solid blocks of dirt, stone, wood, metal. Those aren't kalim because they haven't been fashioned into anything. But the second you take that piece of wood and you give it capacity, like as I'll say, it can hold water, or it could be used for some sort of purpose. So now it's a kli. Or you took wool, right? A tuft of wool is not a kli, but you make it into a fabric, and now it has minimal dimensions. Now it's a kli, even though it's not a tool. It's an implement. It's a piece of beged, as they say. Onkelos translates this as, and Rashi points out, Lo yehe tekin zayin, or zain, digvar al ita. What's that? A man's weapons. She shouldn't carry weapons. Well, at least the way she does it, like upon a man. How does a man carry a gun, let's say? So men have different holsters nowadays. How would a man carry a sword back in the day? You'd have it in a scarab, okay, in a sheath on his belt, right? That means lachgor, because you hold it in your belt. Nowadays, instead of a gun on our side, instead of a sword, we have a gun. Or the way a man holds an assault rifle is it's slinged over his shoulder, right? That's a manly thing to do. So the Gemara asks, "My Talmud Lomar, what is this teaching us, this verse?" By the way, in our printed text, it doesn't have the entire verse. There's a reverse also that has an entire verse. The reverse of this is also, a woman shouldn't wear what a man is wearing. Okay, sorry, a man shouldn't wear what a woman wears. Im shelo yilbash ish simlat isha. That's what also says. A man should not wear a woman's dress. Ish visha simlat ish orik varnemar toevahi veinkan toeva. Says it extends the pasuk. It says, you shouldn't do this. It's an abomination. The einkan toeva. The Gemara's question, as far as I could tell, means just because a man wore a dress, or a woman put on a man's armor, there's a toeva was committed. Usually, you have to do a much worse sin. For example, you'd have to engage in homosexuality for it to be considered a toeva. That's like the worst thing in the world, right? So once upon a time it was political. Nowadays it's politically incorrect to say that, but that's what the Torah says, right? Well, you're comparing the one man putting on a dress to being a full-blown whatever, one of these deviants. So the Gemara answers, Ella shelo yubash ish simlat isha. Man shouldn't put on a woman's dress. V'yeshev bin hanashim, and then start hanging out with the women. That's where he gets, goes among them. V'isha simlat ish v'teshev bin hanashim. She would dress like a man and start going among the men. Right? By the way, the mixing of the sexes in any settings are usually frowned upon by Judaism. Oh, you could have family time, eating the Korban Pesach, men and women together, but that's families. But to just say like, men and women go together to have fun is not a Jewish thing. We don't do that. Okay. Usually we surround with a mitzvah and it's something like that. Okay. Someone's getting a lot of messages, but we'll check it afterwards. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, he says here, he says, Amanin, I don't know how to pronounce that word properly. How do I know that a woman shouldn't go out to war? It says here, she shouldn't go out to war with the man's weapon. Now understand this. Wait a minute. Klei zayin la milchama, to war. Talmud lomar lo yakli gever al isha v'lo yibash gever simlat isha shelo yitakein ish b'tikunei isha. Man shouldn't wear like woman shouldn't either. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is asking, why should a woman go out to war with weapons? So I'd like to just point something out here. If a woman needs to carry a weapon for self-defense, so that's totally permissible, right? A woman should be able to defend herself. There's nothing wrong with a woman defending herself. But to say that, for example, if the only reasonable way you can defend yourself is to have a lethal weapon, so why would a woman not be able to carry it? The answer is so she could have a gun. She just shouldn't be brandishing it like a man does. Maybe put in a pink holster or something like that. Like where Moshe Feinstein says, how does a woman wear tzitzis? Technically speaking, a woman could do the mitzvah tzitzis. Well, if she takes out your black striped Mishkana Techila talis out of your talis bag and wears it, that's a begadish. So she should make a specifically feminine garment with tzitzis. Put a bow on it, pink stripes. Okay, now it's feminine. By the way, my daughter is saying that looks like a blanket that looks talis-like, but it's very feminine. It's frilly and stuff. Okay, but it's a blanket. But this type of thing. So obviously the prohibition is not having a weapon. He's saying klei zayin lemilchama, go out to war like this. It's the prohibition of wearing military uniform, and that's very important. Why? We see this halacha. This is how the Rambam says it. She shouldn't wear a man's, let's say, armor, his type of helmet, those types of things, and a man shouldn't wear colorful clothes or frilly clothes like a woman does. You know what makes clothing feminine. So this basically is a very clear prohibition of women, let's say, even if they want to help the army. The army was doing everything l'shem shamayim. If you wanted women to work, let's say, in some office building, doing logistics, whatever it is that they might need women to do in your IDF, which I don't believe, by the way, there's anything that women can do better than men. So you should just stick to the men because you have no dearth of men. If there was such a job for women, you cannot enlist them like that. You can't have them anywhere near male recruits. That's exactly what's saying here. Women shouldn't dress up like men or do like men, so they don't go among the men. You're supposed to keep them separate. Yeah, that's yeah. So that's the first thing. How can they go to the army if they're mixing them? Two, women should by no means be wearing anything resembling a military uniform.
And even if for whatever reason you think, it would be okay, what's the point?
Yeah. Your daughter wanted to help. I was so proud of my daughter. So they showed this woman. She looks like a woman who wants to keep the Torah. She says she's a mother. She's married. She went to whatever, Beis Yaakov, whatever it was. And she's wearing her head covering like a Jewish woman, but she's wearing a uniform. You can't do that. That's cross-dressing. That's a toeva according to the Torah. That's strictly forbidden. You should lash people for these types of things. So, yeah, you can understand why people like the rabbi are very much opposed to women enlisting, women serving in the army. There's if you look at the basic primary sources, you see there never was anything like this, and things have been taken out of context. But that's the problem. A lot of these halachas ignore the primary source. There is absolutely no justification unless chas v'shalom, every single man was incapacitated, and it was vikuach nefesh that we actually needed women to fill the ranks of a fighting force because there's not enough men. Well, by the way, it's come to that, by the way. The armies have been decimated. But, they didn't say, okay, draft the women. Women, pick up, swords and spears and fight. If you've gotten to that point, you're already lost. Of course you'll lose.
Never had an example.
No, we've had examples like that. Hold on. We've had examples where the army was decimated and there's no one to protect the land and the enemies overran us.
Yeah.
Describes in the Book of Kings.
There's no example that I can think of.
That they said the women jump in.
If they inducted all the women.
Of course not. You can't do such a thing. If women would actually have to fight, replace all the men. So you're already lost.
Women can't fight the men.
What even the Germans didn't do this.
They have pretty.
No.
They have a chance. You can kill.
Even Nazi Germany wasn't this foolish.
A woman
What
can kill somebody
with a gun?
With a gun. Yeah, it does. Pretty close. To
If the men are charging at her, if men are charging at a woman with sticks and stones.
They're different. It's easier nowadays with a weapon, with a gun, than it was in the past with swords.
No. What have they seen? Men charged with sticks and stones at a woman with a pistol or even an assault rifle. What's going to happen? She's going to crack. She won't be able to aim the thing. You understand? Even Nazi Germany knew this. When they're running out of men, what did they do? Think, Battle of the Bulge, the last few months of the war. Draft teenagers. They're taking boys. Hitler Youth was basically the step before. They had the People's Army. What was it called? The Volksgrenadier. Look this up in the history books. Who are the Volksgrenadier? The Germans were running out of men to fight, especially along the Western Front. So what did they do? They basically took, you're injured, whatever, you're an injured officer, whatever. Here your ranks are, your troops are, retirees, older men, and 16-year-olds. Good luck. They never took the woman. They knew that better to have 14-year-old boys who can be taught for 2 weeks to aim a gun. Germans had good guns than any adult woman. At least this is something that they got right. I can't believe you're taking lessons from the Germans. What was Hitler's plan all along with the women? They should bear children, good, purebred children. Women going off to war? That's ridiculous. It's not going to work. And I can't believe that we have Am Kshe Oref, people like us who are still, they're proud of their daughters. I told my daughters, there's no way you might get a job. You can't go to the army. There's other problems, by the way, also. Making use of a woman with whom you have not had kiddushin, you're not marrying, make a woman have work for another man to a certain extent, that's a form of slavery, and there's no such thing as enslaving Jewish women. And if you say that they have to do certain personal services, the only heter for such a thing is through marriage. Okay, so there's no such thing as women going like this. I'd say I think it would be a nightmare for me if any of my daughters would say that they want to enlist. It's an avera. It's like saying, Abba, I want to cross dress. No, you can't do that, despite what people are trying to convince you nowadays in the Western world. That's forbidden. So now you understand this.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.